with Joe Hudson that morning, who at the time was the commander of SID. I'd called Joe and told Joe I had rode my chopper home the day before and I didn't have a car at the house. Could he pick me up? He said, sure, no problem. This goes back into Ryan Buckner's testimony, which is just comical. I walk out the gates of my dealership, September the 12th. It was pretty cool that morning. I had a hoodie on and a ball cap. And Ryan Buckner testifies that he had never seen me before until that morning. But from across the street, he identified me with a hood and a baseball cap on. Now, unless this guy is fucking Superman and has x-ray vision, I don't see how across 4 lanes of traffic, if I have a hood over my head and a ball cap on, how he could ID me. I hopped in Joe's truck. He was driving a GMC Envoy at the time. And I pointed right across the street and I said, what in the fuck is he doing sitting outside my gate? Well, the 34 sitting over in the unmarked car that had been here 2 weeks before getting service, this is how dumb these jackasses were, grabs his hat, pulls it down like that, and takes off. And Joe tries to act like an actor, but Joe's not that good. Joe looked over at him and he looked back at me and he had utter fear in his eyes. He goes, what in the fuck is going on? So I don't know, I was hoping you could tell me that. So we drive down, grab some coffee. He calls Chris Bacchus. Little did we know at the time that Chris was involved in this mess. Chris comes down and meets us. And
why'd they call him? What was his position at the time?
He was Joe's lieutenant.
Okay.
So he calls Chris, and you know, Chris and Joe and I are doing business every day on all these undercover cars. I mean, we literally, this is what's comical and something that's very important. As they were trying to say that this was a criminal entity, we were running drugs and stolen goods, and you know, we're the West Mesa murderers. We got all this going on here. Any given day, we would have anywhere from 3 to 5 undercover 34s a day here in the store. Now, you're in my store. It's not that big. They come in, drop off the cars, come in, hey, we're with new systems, so it sounded like a business to companies. Here's my company car. It needs brakes, it needs air, whatever it needs. Boom. So while we're running this big crime enterprise, we have all these undercover cops here on a daily basis.
At any time, they could just pop in and out?
Anytime. Never knew when they were coming. I mean, every once in a while they call and say, hey, we got a transmission job coming. Majority of the time, they'd show up, I'd call Dave Young. Dave Young would be like, yeah, go ahead and do it. All right, cool. There's always 2. They drop one off, jump in the truck, take off. We're doing what? You know, when you add up all the pieces, it's a fucking joke. So anyhow, Joe picks me up that morning. I never told him anything other than, you know what? I had somebody tell me I'm being investigated and it's something to do with you guys. You guys need to tell me what the fuck's going on. I got a family, I got kids. And if somebody's trying to set us up, you guys better fucking come clean. And Joe was shocked. What I believe happened after Joe dropped me off, him and Chris met back up, and that's when Chris had to come clean to Joe and say, hey, we were doing this FBI thing, you know, and pawn it off on somebody else. But Brad Aaronsfeld called Sean, and that's how Sean knows. And Joe did not know. I put it on anything I have. Joe Hudson was shocked. That's why Kevin McCabe retired like within weeks. It was very clear what was going on. So Joe goes downtown. Darren goes into Ray's office, basically kicks his door open, says, what in the fuck is going on?
Did you call Darren or how Darren found out?
I called Darren that night. I called Darren that night after me and Brad talked. Never told Darren who it was. Just said, bud, somebody is trying to set me up. I need to know what the fuck's going on. And Darren said, you know what? I haven't heard a word, but I'm going to find out. And over the course of the next few days, Darren found everything out. Darren had found out about her house. Darren had found out about Ryan Buckner. He found out about Chris Backus. All these details came directly from Darren. And from what I understand, Darren went into Ray's office, Joe went into Ray's office, and then Ryan and Chris show up going, it was the feds. Or however they tied the feds to it. Because then all of a sudden the FBI agents show up. The original things that they were saying was that we were involved in a stolen goods ring. Okay, while we have all these cops here, and we're dealing drugs. Neither one of those constitutes an FBI probe. How the fuck did the feds get here? How did I would love for those little chicken shits to come down here and tell me to my face what happened. How did this happen? That's why we sit in front of the cameras. We have nothing to hide from anybody. We've been this way from day one. And we will be this way until the truth comes out. Will it ever come out? God only knows. We can only pray that the truth comes out. Because what has happened, what has been done, you know, that morning when I'd love to have been a fly on the wall with Joe Hudson from the time he left here till he got downtown. Because then Joe called me to go meet him again. He called me twice, and then we met over at Capo's. And Chris Backus is in the back seat. What do you know? What do you know? You know, they were more concerned about what I knew instead of what was going on. And I should have, I wish I would have been more vigilant to that. And at the time, I think Joe really wanted to know, but Chris wanted to know what we knew. Chris was a little bit concerned that day. He wanted to know, what is it that we know? How much had gotten out? You know, Darren made no qualms about blaming Chris Backus.